traditionally in January, some New Thought centers, specifically the Centers for Spiritual Living Worldwide, go back to basics. And they focus on the introduction to this big tome called The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, the founder of what's known as religious science, or really the Science of Mind philosophy, which is the philosophy that was the foundational philosophy that I studied throughout my 7 years of consciousness studies. And what they do is they go to the introduction, which is only about 70 pages long, and go through the first 4 parts of that introduction to remember what it is that we're talking about, what it is that we are learning, exploring, what are we digging into, and what it is that we're reminding ourselves of every single time that we come together. And so what I wanted to talk about today, because we're going back to basics, is the first few words of the Bible, which is something I don't talk a lot about, but the first few words of the Bible are, in the beginning. And so the whole thing that we want to focus on today and this entire month is that in the beginning, there was just consciousness. Just this thing, formless, no substance, this potentiality. And this thing, it still exists today. It's not like there was a delineating moment where like it wasn't and then it was, because for us to wrap our minds about infinite, eternal, boundless, limitless, with no beginning, no end, that can be a little bit mind-bending. But if we just kind of let go of that, and if we remember that we are that thing, then let us just open up to this is the only thing that is going on. So the thing that we need to do, whenever it is that we're getting caught up in life, getting caught up in the negative thinking and the negative choices and the habits and the people that are driving us crazy and the things that we shoulda, coulda, woulda done, we go back to the beginning. We go back to remembering that we are not our thoughts, we are not our beliefs, we are not our experiences, we are not our choices. Those are things that we do, things that maybe we make, but the thing that is doing the making behind it, behind that, the back of it, underneath, at the very center, the very epicenter of it all, the inception of it all, is pure consciousness. And so I have a quote for you from this little book. I don't talk about her a lot on Wednesdays, but Emma Smiley, her final book, The Magnificent Assumption, which was put out in 1982, I think. And it's a great little book, and she has an entire chapter on consciousness. So when this theme came up for me, I'm like, I know what I'm going to be digging into this month when it comes to Emma Smiley. And for those who don't remember, Emma Smiley was the founder of the Victoria Truth Center back in the 1930s and was the spiritual leader for over 40 years. So she has a quote in there that says, consciousness is much more than that of which we are now aware. Consciousness is limitless. And so let's go back to our theme for the month. Love is all there is. Consciousness is everything. So if we just pause and take a moment to really open up to this as a truth, not just a fact or an idea or a concept, but take this as true, that there's nothing else, that consciousness is everything, then that means that Sherry is consciousness, that Stephanie is consciousness, Gloria, Britt, Liz, Denise, everyone in this room, everyone tuning in online, this podium is consciousness, because everything is everything, right? And if that's all there is, there's nothing that's not that. And so when we consider what it is, when we go back to the science of mind and talk about the thing itself, which is kind of as generic as Ernest Holmes gets, because he uses a lot of words for this thing or consciousness. He uses God, he uses love, he uses spirit, source, he uses infinite intelligence and universal mind, and the list goes on and on and on, just so that you don't get stuck on one thing and this is what it is. Because those are just words, those are just labels so that we can make sense of it or try to make sense of it and to relate to it somehow, right? But that's not as important as it is to really feel it in our bodies, to drop down from our minds, our heads, down into our heart, and to embody this incredible, amazing, dynamic, energetic flow, this vitality, this creativity, this infinite, boundless, limitless potentiality that we are in every single cell, system, and organ of our being. It's there so that we can open up every single molecule and atom and interspace of our being and invite more experience of this thing that we are. And so when we talk about it in Science of Mind, we talk about it in terms of there's only one, but there are different aspects to it. And I'll talk a little bit more about these aspects throughout the month. But basically, it is the inception, it is the beginning, it is the cause, it is the starter of everything. And sometimes we talk about it as mind, and we talk about it as conscious mind and subjective mind. Not two minds, it's just two aspects or two elements of the one thing. But what's important to realize is that conscious mind is our thinking mind. That's the self-knowing mind. That's the mind that we're aware of. Then there's subjective mind, which is the one that we're not aware of, but this is the one that reflects the thoughts that get put into it, and then what shows up is the third aspect of it, which is form. And so we want to get really clear on what it is that we are choosing to experience by really getting clear on what is going on in our subjective mind. This is where all memories, all thoughts, all beliefs of all time exist. And whether we are aware of it or not, every single thing we think is filtering through all of those thoughts, all of those potential memories, all of those potential realities, and then showing up in form. And if what we're experiencing in form, which is our life, which is who we are, if it's not what we want or what we would prefer, then guess what? We're always at choice and we can change it. But if we're wondering, well, I keep thinking these thoughts that I want to, experience in life, but they show up differently. Well, this is where you got to dig into the subjective mind, and we'll talk a bit about that later. So anyway, so there's these three aspects: conscious mind, subjective mind, form. And then there's also the universal, which is consciousness experiencing itself as the planets and the universes and the galaxies and all of the stuff in the world. And then there's the individual consciousness experience, which is our life experience and the choices that we make and the life that we create for ourselves based on those choices, based on the beliefs and the thoughts that we have, that we are holding dear, that we may or may not be aware of in our subjective mind. So the whole point is this consciousness thing, it is creativity and action all the time. And the thing that is inspiring it to unleash itself is us. And so if we want to have a better life, we got to start making better choices. We got to start thinking better thoughts. We got to start living life more lovingly within and without. And so there's another quote from Emma's book. We expand our consciousness in only one way, by becoming more aware of God. Now, if God doesn't work for you as a word, that's okay. Because really, it's just consciousness becoming more aware of itself. So it's us remembering who we really are. And so if you want to throw in love, if you want to throw in spirit, creativity, the quantum field, whatever it is that works for you, go for it. Because it's just consciousness remembering that it's consciousness. Remember a few months ago when I was talking about that amazing Alan Watts video that just blew my mind, where he was talking about how life is kind of about God playing a game of hide and seek with itself? We're like, oh, I'm so powerful, I can experience all the amazing stuff in the world that I want. Ooh, if I'm all powerful, then maybe I can experience a whole bunch of negative stuff and see what happens. Ooh, I'm so powerful that I got to do that and that and that, getting to the point of, I wonder if I'm so powerful that I could make myself forget that I'm so powerful. And that's where we are. Right here, right now. Our job is to remember that we are not just the things that we experience, we are not the circumstances, we are not the life that is whirling and swirling around us that we are actually creating for ourselves. We are the thing behind that, underneath it, within that. We are that power that is boundless, limitless, eternal, forever expanding and expressing itself in, through, and as everyone and everything. Emma Smiley also writes, we see that we have only one thing to do. We must expand our consciousness. We may erase our self-made line of demarcation, which is our belief that we are living with conditions and circumstances that are greater than we are. Love is all there is. Consciousness is everything. And the sooner we remember that consistently, and not just for ourselves, but everyone in our life, the people that are driving us crazy, the people that make us angry, it's not them that are making us angry. They're simply there reflecting what it is in us that requires attention. They're consciousness just as much as we are. And so it's not their fault. We get to look inside and see what it is in me that requires attention. Where can I grow? Where can I remember more fully that love is all there is and consciousness is everything? So that means I am love. I am consciousness. And so is everyone and everything around me. So to end, I want to finish off with that quote by Ernest Holmes that we had in our meditation, because it's one of my favorite quotes. And I know I've used it before, probably at the beginning of last year. But to me, it just speaks of how wondrous and magical and boundless and limitless the possibilities of who we can become are. The inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. Freedom. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope, of a love beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom which the soul craves. Thank you, and so it is.